Making a huge level for your game is a terrible idea, because, well, it's obviously more work, and bigger doesn't equal better. And also, if you have a bigger level, that means that you have to fill it with more content, otherwise it's gonna get boring. And all of that content has to be good, and it's gonna be harder to make good. But we're doing all of that anyway. Here's why. We're making Abrasion, an exploration-focused horror game set inside an ancient megastructure. To be fair, the game isn't a massive open-world adventure, but it's big for its genre, and way bigger than anything the two of us have ever made. We've made games for about 10 years, but many of them have been game jams, or other small projects. In 2021, we released Horror Dungeon 3D. It's a simple horror game, but has been played millions of times. We started thinking about a much bigger game idea at this point, but it was too huge to actually make. In 2023, we made a small game jam game, Death Row, using some ideas from that project. The game turned out pretty good, so at the beginning of 2024, we decided to take it one step further and started making Abrasion. Two of my university friends also joined the project to help with art, so we now have a team of 4 people. We're using Godot to make the game. It lets you use blend files directly as 3D models. It's not a perfect workflow, but it has the huge benefit of being able to model something in Blender and immediately see changes in the game without manually exporting or importing the file again. The first version of the game had just a simple level and a character controller, but we already did some playtesting at a local game dev event to help steer the game into the right direction. The workflow between Blender and Godot allowed me to change things very easily, but the initial level design was just too linear and lacked interesting options for movement. The second version of the level was much better and had more interesting interconnected routes. It just didn't serve our gameplay loop very well, so we threw that one out and started over one more time. We're still playtesting and fixing sections that are frustrating or too confusing to players, but the map is starting to come together nicely. I also made new textures using Substance Designer and started expanding the level, while also adding details to existing areas. My level design process is very loose. The game has different areas that aim to invoke a certain mood, and we usually have a clear idea of where we want the player to go, but those things only act as a starting point for level design. The rest falls on intuition. I simply create whatever seems good in the moment, and later test if it works in the game. Sometimes it does, but I often go back and forth to achieve a result that I like. I've drawn layouts, maps and concepts on paper, which can be helpful, but the areas usually end up looking very different in-game anyway. After an area has been fully blocked out, I start adding props like pipes and beams, sometimes modeling unique assets to add recognizable landmarks and visual interest. Doing all of this work in Blender is quite nice, because I don't have to worry about switching back and forth between a level editor and a 3D modeling package. The world is the most important part of this game, so level design is very time consuming, but after each iteration, the level becomes more interesting to navigate and explore. It might be a horrible idea to make a big, complex level, but it is what makes Abrasion unique. All of us are still students, and we work on this game in our spare time. Abrasion is gonna be our first release on Steam, and we're hoping eventually to sustain ourselves with the games that we make. It's not gonna be a perfect game, but it's gonna be a solid experience for anyone who's interested in diving into this bleak world that we're creating. The release is only a few months away, and we actually have a small demo on Steam already, but I recommend waiting for the full release. That's about it for this first devlog. Make sure to wishlist Abrasion on Steam and maybe see you next time.